Hi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 43rd episode of Dads and Ed. This is the last show, at least of 2015.
Right.
Not just
I
the
was gonna
last
say,
show.
don't scare off our listeners there,
I
John.
know. Well, hey, you know what? Like Seinfeld and Cheers, they got like great, great attendance for the last, great ratings for the last show. Kind of tease people. Maybe they think it's our last. Maybe they'll tune in more. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the outcry would be deafening
It would be.
for us to
Well,
stay.
maybe.
Mhm.
I don't know. So anyway, this is our last show of 2015. We'll talk more about 2016 later in the show. My name is Josh Allen. 3 wonderful kids, 1 wonderful wife, tech integration specialist in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Pleased, as always, to be joined by...
Brent Catlett, Director of Technology in Independence, Missouri, Kansas City metro area, home of the Kansas City Royals, world champions. And I am married to the lovely Josie with 5 children, ages 9 down to 9 or 10 months. I forget where that kid's at the moment. But living the dream. Excited to be here tonight.
Last but not least...
Hello. Dad, I always say your name wrong.
Wow.
I
You
always
always say my name
No,
wrong?
I always say your job wrong. As what I meant.
What is my job?
K-12 instructional technology.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Okay, also known as the 4th member of Dads and Ed.
You have okay, Claire, the 4th member of Dads and Ed. That's right.
It's official.
Yeah, I'm Devin Schoening. I'm the K-12 instructional technology something or other at Council Bluffs Schools in Council Bluffs, Iowa. My lovely wife is down on the treadmill, shaming me in our running challenge for the month of December. She's doing a great job. I am not so much doing a great job. My kids are 9 and 11, both girls, both Claire and Grace. So we're good. They're all ready for break here. We go through the end of the week, and then we are done for 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's kind of... Let's stop on that for just a second, because it just kind of dawned on me today that... not everyone's going until next week. Brent, when do you guys get? When do your kids get done in school?
The kids have school Monday and Tuesday of next week, and then they're off
Oh.
after that.
We go. Our kids have school until Wednesday.
Yeah, that seems crazy to me. I can't imagine there's going to be much, focus on December 23rd.
Yeah.
Essentially,
I've been thinking about some blog posts around that topic. Haven't quite jotted them down yet, but be a good time to jump back into Hour of Code, or use ChatterPix to create a character in your story. I got a few other ideas rolling around that if I could sit down and not be swamped at this time of the year, then maybe I would share those with our staff. But
And aren't you on some sort of blogging challenge right now too, Josh? You should be flipping off.
yeah, my blogging challenge is probably right up there with how Devin's doing with the running challenge against his wife. So I could probably say the same thing about my blogging challenge. But
yeah, going really, really well. Yeah.
yeah, fabulous. I have blogged, and I got a few more in my brain. Anyway, we digress. We are excited to have you here. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, before we jump into it, I just wanted to ask Brent, since he's going to probably introduce himself as a Kansas City Royals world champion fan for the next, 11 months or so. Did you see that the Giants signed Johnny Cueto away today?
Did they really? I didn't see that. It's been a busy day. You can have that bum. We don't need him.
Sign away another number 1 pitcher to put behind the number 1 pitcher, Madison Bumgarner. So, yeah, Johnny Cueto.
I didn't see that. That's where you're like, as a purist guy who's like, hey, can't the guy just play for one team his whole, which I know is not the case, right? It's business, but man, to go to the San Francisco Giants, really? Like, come on, Johnny. I'm surprised I haven't seen any, memes and things, whatever the heck you call them, and with all that rolling around the social media verse.
I don't know, Devin. You mentioned the second signing away of a number 1. Do you really count Jeff Samardzija as a number 1? I mean, he was number 1 of one of the worst teams in the AL.
No, I wasn't counting him as number 1. I was really just counting Cueto as the Royals' number 1 and signing him. Samardzija, as another friend I have here as a Royals fan, continues to tell me, it was statistically the worst pitcher in the American League last year. Combined runs, hits, and home runs last year given up. So, no, I think Samardzija has a chance to be pretty good, but no, certainly not counting him as number one.
If you want to join in on all these great topics, feel free to mention the Dads and Ed account at Dads and Ed. Put something in the hashtag, hashtag Dads and Ed. We always enjoy the listeners doing that. Even if you're listening to this on the podcast, which you can find in iTunes by searching Dads and Ed, feel free to connect with us any way possible, and we'll be sure and say hi. Moving on, we tweeted out your homework earlier. The water cooler topic of this week is Tim Cook was participating in the Hour of Code at the one of the New York Apple stores, and said a lot of things. One of which got the media's attention was that Google Chromebooks were a low-priced, quote, test machine. We should probably start with full disclosure. All three of us work at schools that use Google Apps. Brent reminds us constantly that he's Google certified something or other, awesomeness or something.
Not.
Google certified Kool-Aid maker. So, you know, as I first read this and listened to some of the comments, you know, I think that the Google Chromebook, and, you know, I've only had one for just over a year now. I think it does what we want it to do in an elementary setting. I am never going to argue that the Chromebook is a more powerful device than an Apple MacBook, but what we need it for in an educational setting is to find information and give kids access to information. And it can do that for $250, $270. So while I don't like his point, I also am not going to say that you know, the Chromebook is a, you know, more powerful device than what a Mac is. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
We've always, I mean, I think I've talked a lot, you know, when it's, you know, if people are coming in to visit us about Chromebooks or something, you know, if all things were equal in terms of price and everything else, I think we would probably be MacBooks. But it's not just the price, it's also the management of those devices, especially when you're in larger settings, you know, larger number of devices. But I guess the number one thing is that Tim Cook is really worried about devices for schools. We'll start by doing something better than knocking off $40 when you buy one in a school setting, you know, or whatever it is. 40 might be 100. I don't know. It's not very much, you know, when you're starting at over 1,000 anyways.
It doesn't equal what you get a Chromebook for.
Right. I mean, not even the saving. I mean, there's just, so if you want to have devices in schools, more MacBooks, you know, try giving schools a little better deal, and then also find a way to better manage all those things. You know, that's the other great thing about the Chromebooks. It's so easy to manage, you know, in large numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, having worked in a district where my previous tech director bought, you know, MacBooks for all the teachers. We were previously a PC district, and then we started working with iPads in the classrooms. And then when I moved down here to Kansas City, we're predominantly Chromebooks, although we do have we have actually a significant number of iPads as well in the district, a lot in adults' hands, but now some of the buildings have started to purchase them with their own funds. And I know, Devin, you and I got into this at Ed Camp Omaha a little bit about some of my thoughts around this, and I don't know. I just what I am interested in is what does a teacher need to do the job, and I know that that's easier said than done, but that for me is I don't know. I can't get off that topic in my head in the sense of what I would love to do to promote, you know, different things. So, do I like an iPad? Sure. Do I like a Chromebook? Yes. So, do I like a MacBook? Yes. Do I like my iPhone? Yes. You know, so I use a variety of different tools to do different jobs. And I know, again, that's not the ideal setting necessarily for a school district to be able to say, okay, yeah, we'll get all this different stuff and purchase all this different stuff. But I don't know, it's interesting. I always, for lack of better terms, you know, call it the pissing contest between Apple and Google. And it kind of annoys me, to be honest with you. Just, I wish it wasn't like that or about that, but it seems to always be this, at least in our worlds and the articles you read and the things where, it's always this sort of stuff. And when he goes out and says they're just test machines, well, I've sat in some amazing Google summits and with friends from Google that have really inspired me with the internet, and what's possible, and like you mentioned, Josh, just information in general. And so I don't know. It's a tough subject for me.
I really like the pairing of. Hold on just a second. I really like the pairing of a Chromebook and like an iPad or an iPhone, and our staff does a really good job of allowing kids to bring in their own device and use what they need to use to get the job done. Because I think that's the one thing that we lack being a Chromebook one-to-one school is really the ability to create movies and video type projects. That's kind of, I think, where the Chromebook falls down. But again, we don't need that a lot. We need it every now and then, but we don't need it a lot. So that's kind of, I guess, where I'm at with that.
And I would say, you have to look, I guess, which is deterring the other. If teachers and if classrooms and if kids were doing that more often, would schools find a way to get the devices in the hands of kids that would do that? Or is it the other way? Are teachers and kids and classrooms not doing those things because they don't have a device to do it? I think you could argue probably both sides of that. But still, so much of this still comes down to dollars and cents. I mean, you only have so much money. And when you're deciding how to spend that money, you have to do the thing that's going to get you the most bang for the buck, for lack of a better term. Now, we've always argued, as we've talked about in our district, that we would love to have technology-rich environments, right? So maybe not every kid has a MacBook or an iPad or whatever, but if a teacher is providing a learning opportunity that is going to have kids creating a movie of some kind, then there need to be devices available for those kids to do that. Now, they might not keep them, might not be their device they keep, for their 4 years of school or whatever, but that device or those devices should be available to those kids. So, creating technology-rich environments is, I would hope, what we would shoot for, but I don't know that we can provide at any point in time, unless you happen to be one of a handful of districts in states that can afford to give all their kids MacBooks or combinations of devices. Every kid gets a Chromebook and an iPad or whatever it is. Boy, I don't know that we'll ever be in a position to be able to spend the amount of money that it takes to do those things.
And I really just like the ability to let the kids be comfortable with what they are. I like, really, to be honest, how we're doing it, and other schools do it. We give the kid a Chromebook. He or she has the access to information. And then if they need to make something that involves an iPad or an Android tablet or a MacBook, and they have it, great. Or their phone. I mean, that's great. Be open. You talk about dollars and cents. Well, be open to what kids have. Smartphones are a huge status symbol for people. And a lot of people will pay their smartphone bill before they pay other bills. And so I think we can't be naive to think that kids don't have devices in their pockets that are just as or more powerful than some of the computers we give them access to. All right. Brent, did you have any follow-up there? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, my only last comment would be, I tweeted you guys an article, Washington Post, about a gal who got iPad, said she wanted to give them back. You guys both ignored me about it. And that was a pretty interesting read as well, in the same light that this gal was basically saying kids don't want to play Legos anymore, and they don't this and that and the other. Our good friend that was on the show, just lost his name, he wrote a post in reply to it that caught my attention initially. Oh my gosh.
John Spencer.
So yeah, thank you, John Spencer. And that caught my eye initially, and then I went back because he linked up the other post. But just interesting, what's taking place in education right now, and particularly with technology.
All right. That is a wonderful topic that I know that we're going to revisit here in the future, because this is not the last Dads and Ed, only the last Dads and Ed 2015. Moving on, Dad moment of the week. Man, being Christmas time, there's just a ton that we could choose from. I will have to say, my 7-year-old boy has had 3 music concerts in the last week, uh, for three different activities. So last week was church. Saturday was an after-school church group that he goes to that's affiliated with, not that is at the school, not affiliated with the school, but at the school. And tonight was his own school concert. So I have to give him props. 2 out of 3 of those were on his own. I mean, obviously your school concert is you're required to go, but the other 2 he volunteered to do it. One may or may not be because there was cookies after one of the performances, but he has stepped up, and he's not a singer by any means. I mean, he is my kid after all, so he's terrible at it. But I mean, he's doing a great job. He had a reading part tonight. Is doing phenomenal. So it's pretty cool to see him step up and volunteer to do some of this stuff and be excited about it. So anyway, that's my dad moment of the week. Brent, you want to go next?
Sure. I think I'm going to share. I had the kids for an extended amount of time over the weekend, and on Saturday I went to the UPS store with them to mail off a couple puzzles to other youngins across the country in Nebraska and Minnesota, and then we went to Target to grab some things and come home. Anyway, when I was at the UPS store, it was a busy place, of course, and they were great. They gave the kids some fruit snacks, which was kind of nice. But as we were leaving, this gal was like, "Gosh, your kids are so well behaved." And then we went to Target, saw another friend, and they said, "Oh, your kids are so well behaved." Like, this was kind of even after the fact, and so I've had that moment of like, maybe I'm doing some things right. I know there's a lot of things I'm doing wrong, but I feel good about kind of where we are with those kids when we're out in public, and even as the little crew that I bring along, particularly in that scenario when I'm by myself, is always challenging, but yet they do a pretty good job. So maybe just getting a couple compliments felt good, then to know that other people see hopefully that hard work of just trying to build some good kids.
Well, and I'll just follow up because we were one of the lucky recipients of one of those puzzles. We have a nice old school cereal box one. We are super excited about. The kids thought the just the layout of it. I mean, there's like there's like 100 different boxes on the front of it, and it's just kind of cool visually. So kids were excited to take a look at that and get that open. Unfortunately, we got home too late, but they're excited. So thank you, and we need to return the favor at some point.
Yeah, we'd love to trade off.
My dad moment of the week kind of plays into a couple of you guys, I guess. You guys see or hear Claire almost every episode, but you rarely see or hear Gracie. And she, as a middle school kid this year in 6th grade, she had a music concert this last week, and I was at basketball, so I couldn't go. And my wife Erin took a picture of her kind of dressed and ready to go for her concert, and she just looked old, she's 11, and she looked like she was about 17, and it scared the crap out of me. And so yeah, getting old, and she's a good kid, and tomorrow morning get to go, and she has a honors breakfast of some kind, first trimester honor roll breakfast or something. So it's just one of those things where you see your kids growing up, especially when they get to be this kind of middle school age, and 11 and 12. She'll be 12 in February, and the picture I just looked at, and it's like, holy crap, she looks old. And he, yeah, and it scared the bejesus out of me moving forward. Like, what am I going to do in 2 years? So, yeah, it's a dad moment of the week, but it's also like my scared moment of the week.
All of a sudden, just like, wait, no. I mean, granted, we were young when we had them, but young?
Yeah, it really was. Like that can't be. That's not her. Like.
Well, Maddox has decided to cut his hair really short, and you see young kids who just got this mop of hair all over the place, and now that his is short, he looks a whole lot older, and kind of the same thing. It's like, well, I mean, I'm still probably 30-ish. That ish might be growing a little bit, but roughly something like that.
That's funny. Yeah,
Oh
'cause
well.
you never know. Like, and as she was getting ready for that, and Claire was kind of getting into her stuff for her concert that she had a few weeks ago. It's just like, man, oh man, kind of. I always equate it to this idea that when your kids are young, I maybe even shared this here early on, but people always. I remember people telling me when I had kids, oh, cherish it. It goes so fast. It goes so fast. And I was always like, what are you talking about? Time is time. Like time can't go faster or slower. And it is by far the truest advice anybody ever gave me. Like, cherish every minute of it because it really does go fast. All of a sudden you look at it and your kids are, 9 and 11 for me, and it's like, holy cow, man, they're never going to be that little 4-year-old again, or some of that stuff that you look forward to as a parent when your kids are young, the snuggling and the constant hug, that stuff kind of goes away after a while, and that's no good.
Well, I think it's funny because like with both the girls, Reese just turned 3 in October, and I felt like she was 2 forever. And same thing with Lane. I felt like Lane was 4 forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden Maddox will be 8 here in a month and a half, and it's crazy. And I same way with you when people tell you, oh, cherish, yeah, you cherish it, yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, that's fine. But yeah, all of a sudden now I'm 2 years away from a kid double digits, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane, but and I think coaching basketball, maybe it just brought it because when I originally quit coaching a number of years ago was when my kids were young, and I didn't want to be gone, and back coaching now, I kind of did it with the understanding that I could be a little bit flexible with my time, but missing things like that, even though they're sometimes treacherous to sit through. Missing the music concerts and some of that stuff is, you then end up looking at it and saying, wow, I'll never get that back. Like, I won't be able to go to that 6th grade music concert again. So, yeah, that's no good.
I don't know. After the 2nd grade concert I sat through tonight, I think I'm good with that, man.
Just show me the video.
I'll send it to you. I got video of it. It'll be great. That'll be our new Dad's and Ed intro for the 2016 year. That'll get viewers. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to be joined by Kelly Croy. Did I say your name right?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Good. I don't get that played for me very often, Kelly, so I'm glad that I can at least do it at a good time. So, Kelly, introduce yourself to us and to the thousands of people that may accidentally stumble across this at some point in their life.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. My name's Kelly Croy. I'm a 7th grade English and language arts teacher in Oak Harbor, Ohio. I'm the father of 4 daughters. Great family planning. I have a freshman in college and a 1st grader, and 2 in between.
Nice.
So all
you will
great.
almost have that paid off.
So I will be teaching another 30 years, and I will see everything. No, it's great. I love your show. I love the concept of it. I really enjoyed. I've been listening for the last half hour, and what great conversation. I love education. I'm one of the lucky few that really found my calling to become an educator early in life. I started teaching at 21. Been trying to figure out how to do it right ever since. So I'm still on that quest, and I'm a middle school teacher, which means I'm special. So
and you're never going to get it right.
That's right. That's right.
Boy, there's a special place in the world for middle school teachers. That's
yeah,
sure.
Everybody says that. I was certain I was going to be a high school teacher and then go off and be this awesome college professor. And the guy that hired me was like, no, you're a middle school teacher. And so for a couple of years I thought, what a great compliment. And then about year 3 I figured out it meant that I was really strange and had that rapport with those kind of kids. So anyways, it's great. I absolutely love what I do. I go to work whistling and come home whistling. It's great great, fantastic job. So.
That is awesome. Well, kind of along those lines, I'm assuming some of this came up. You talked about you're, one of the lucky ones that gets to kind of do what you love all day for your job. Can you talk a little bit about the podcast, the Wired Educator podcast, and talk a little bit about how that got started? I'm assuming it has something to do with this love of education that you have and the job that you get to do. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of what you're proud of with regards to the podcast?
Yeah, I would love to. Thanks for asking. So. I used to go to a lot of educational conferences, and I guess I've really been interested in tech and education for a really, really long time. And really, the only place that you could talk about technology and education at the time was at conferences. And there really weren't a lot of educational blogs yet or podcasts or things like that. And I remember Pat Kania, he's now a principal at Norwalk Schools near here. Pat was a student of mine. And he became a teacher in our district, and we went to the Ohio E-Tech conference. And we were sitting at a little coffee shop, and we just happened to meet some other educators, guys just like you. And we had this great conversation. It's like, wouldn't it be great if we could just talk about educational technology anytime we wanted and, pick people's brains and things like that? And there's nothing out there. And so Pat and I started the Wired Educator blog. And it's just the last February, that I started podcasting as Wired Educator. I've been blogging since probably close to 2000, I'd guess, and just started podcasting this last year. So it's been great. The biggest challenge for me has been consistency. I started off as a great podcaster, putting out an episode every week, and then things slowly came to a crawl. So I'm really excited. I think, for me, it's just kind of like what you're doing tonight. I just look for people I find interesting on Twitter or, anywhere else that are doing some cool things in education, and I just have a conversation. I call them up on Skype, and it's a true podcast, no video. We send it over to iTunes, and it's been a lot of fun. Every single interview that I've done, I've learned so much. I'm inspired, and my biggest goal is that if anyone's listening, they'll be like me, and they'll even if I'm an English teacher, I've interviewed a lot of science teachers, and even though our curriculum is a lot different, our passion's the same and our interests are the same, and so I walk away a better English teacher for having listened to this really enthusiastic science teacher. And so that's the premise of it. I like to share great ideas with as many people as possible. We're really blessed to be teachers in this day and age. We can share and learn from educators all over the world. Literally, we're global now, and I think that's a concept that teachers are really starting to embrace. And you see people like Brent and Alice Keeler and people like that just throwing great content out there, just changing the lives of educators and students all across the world.
Well, Kelly, it's great to see you again here virtually since New York days at the Google Academy, man.
Right. Wait. Hold on. Dang it.
Come on, Josh. You should have been
As soon
ready.
as you started in, I'm like, oh, stupid Google. Fine, go ahead.
Anyway, well, so I'm reminiscing with Kelly about our time together at the Google Academy, which
You already said that.
for me, Kelly, was a bit of a life-changing event for sake of meeting guys like yourself. And I remember saying, if maybe you could bottle up that room of educators and say, hey, let's start a district and do our thing, like what amazing things we could have done. You mentioned you were listening to us as we got started there. We were talking a little bit about Tim Cook and the CEO talking about Google devices and classrooms just being test machines. And I'm curious to know where you're at with that particular statement. Do you agree with it? What are your thoughts around this topic?
Where'd he go? Kelly, come back. Brent, you left him speechless.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Kelly's back.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Not sure what happened. Since this is Dads in Education, I probably have to disclose I may have all 4 daughters on Netflix right now while I'm trying to. I may have to go check that out. I'm not sure. Brett, I did hear that you were really excited about Google when we met. Can you?
Yeah, I was just mentioning how if you bottled up that room of educators and the energy in that room, in that particular academy, you know, and so I'm sure others are just like ours, or just in general, like you mentioned earlier with at conferences. That's where I've always gotten my life, if you will, to continue to push myself to be the best I can be, and being around guys like Devin and Josh. We've always said if it was just us three on here and no one listened, we didn't care because we were talking shop, and but
Right.
you know, perhaps we have affected some people. But anyway, you had mentioned that you were listening to us as we got rolling there, and we were kind of discussing the CEO, Tim Cook from Apple, talking about, you know, Chromebooks being test machines. And as I recall, you like Apple products. I'm kind of curious, do you agree with some of those statements? Where are you at around the topic?
Yeah, I listened to your conversation really well, and I think you all made up great points. And you know, it's sad that it does often come down to money, you know, and this is an idea that, you know, we just keep having again and again and again. And I don't like the competition either between devices. I guess I'm kind of like Josh. You know, I'm more open to like a you know, whatever device you want to use, but I do have a few thoughts I'd like to share, and I think you made some great comments. First, it is amazing that we all get to share like this. I challenge you guys to think of another profession that stays up late at night and talks about their profession with other professionals, or follows Twitter posts or blogs. You know, honestly, I can't think of any. Can you guys? I mean, does that happen? You know, I don't know. I just can't imagine my doctor's up right now on a podcast somewhere talking about you know, how to take temperatures better and things like that. But that's education, and we're givers, and I think it's wonderful. As far as Tim Cook's comments go, you know, obviously Chromebooks have really become popular in education, and I do kind of agree with him a little bit. Now, before I get lambasted for that, I want to, you know, talking about that Washington Post article about the lady who said that she wants to give back all of her iPads and things like that. You know, she can call me up. She can find me on White Educator. She used them wrong. You know, don't blame the device for having done it wrong. And I think the same goes for the Chromebook. You know, there are some people out there doing amazing things with the Chromebook. And so what happens in education, and you guys know this very well, is that without the proper professional training, without the enthusiasm of educators, devices, whether they be iPads or Chromebooks, get placed in classrooms, and they do become just test-taking machines. You know, they don't really know how to use them. And you know, I'm lucky; I have access to both. I have MacBooks, I have access to Chromebooks, and I have some iPads and other devices like that. And it's my discipline or interest every day of getting on Twitter and reading articles about how people are using them that helps me use them better in my classroom. And I think that's really the issue. You know, I think if that teacher that was in the Washington Post knew what to do, you know, that she would see the fantastic abilities of an iPad. And the same is for a Chromebook. But I do have to laugh. Like, I'm not going to mention names, but there's been some people on Twitter, and like Google released Google Draw, right? Drawing, is that what it's called, the drawing tool?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
No disrespect to Google whatsoever, but you know, these people post these comments like, "Wow, look what the Google drawing tool does." And I mean, you take an iPad and you find the most basic drawing tool that's free on an iPad, and it blows away the Google drawing tool, you know, 100 times to 1. What I like about the iPad is it's so personable, it's so portable. I think the big game changers for Apple are iBooks Author and iTunes University. And I think the ability for teachers to create a personalized textbook for students and for staff, for that matter, using iTunes U and iBooks, that's really the big game changer there. You know, these learning management systems can be accessed on just about any device. But, you know, I don't underestimate the power of a front-facing camera on an iPad. That's big for a lot of students. To this day, you know, I have trouble making movies on Chromebooks. You know, I think the ease of use on in my district won't unlock YouTube for those kind of purposes and things like that. And so there are some restrictions, but you know, a great teacher or and a great teacher for me is just a passionate one for that matter, will take any tool that they're given and just make the best of it. But I really wish teachers were treated like surgeons. And I hope whatever surgeon I have to go into their knife for always has the tools he or she wants to have available to them. And we don't. We get what's for the most part, what was the cheapest. And we don't buy buses that way, and we don't build school buildings that way. But we do provide technology that way, and I hope that changes. And I'm not going to pick one device over the other, but you can do great things with either. And that was a very long answer.
Well, that's right. And, the thing I pick up on that is, you mentioned earlier that, it's the way in which we use devices that really makes the difference. And you said two things. You said, teachers need to have some professional learning around how to use those, and they have to have some enthusiasm. And I think if I was picking between the two, I certainly want the teacher working in my building who has the enthusiasm and the curiosity to figure out how that's being used versus a professional learning opportunity where they're kind of told maybe this is how that's being used. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that's probably the more important of those two pieces, is for a teacher to be naturally kind of enthusiastic and curious about the possibilities of whatever the tool might be.
Right. And Google makes fantastic services. Am I still on?
Yep.
Yeah,
I apologize. One of the most popular articles on Wired Educator to date has been my article, The Best Chromebook is an iPad. And it just gets people infuriated. Has a lot of comments on it. It's been retweeted and things like that. But there are over 39 Google apps available for the iPad. And, a lot of people weigh in and say, well, the way you use those apps on an iPad isn't as thorough as you would on a Chromebook. And they're right, because you got the Google Chrome extensions and everything like that as well. But Google is making great services and products for the iPad, and so you do have access to a lot of Chromebook on an iPad as well.
One of the things that you talked about is that there's not another profession that stays up late and talks about what it is that we're doing and how we can be better. And my dad's a funeral director, and I was trying to think of the conversations they would be having late at night, and probably only around when they need to go pick up some business. But what are some things that you are trying to learn more? What goals do you have related around education? Kind of where are you at with what you're trying to learn?
That's a great question, Josh. And I wish I had it down to just a couple right now.
Right. Yeah. Come look at the window in my office. You can see everything that I'm trying to learn.
Right. Right now, I always want to become better. And so one of the big things I do is I display my goals in my classroom. And this year I have about a dozen. I know that's way too many from what all the books say. But I hang them in my classroom so the students see them and hold me accountable. And one was to start like a chess club, and so the kids saw that and they kept encouraging me until we started playing chess at lunch and things. Another one was I wanted to build an iBook with each of my sections that I teach. And so I'm always trying to improve. Lately, what's really been kind of on my mind, I can't personally do anything about it, but I'm trying to learn a lot about grading. And there's been a lot of talk about homework and grading. And, I love that this is Dads in Education, because I think, every year you become a different educator. But I think one of the biggest differences in my teaching philosophy was when my daughter started going to school. I started looking at homework differently from the eyes as a parent, as an eyes of a student, things like that. So I think we go through many different levels. But I think homework and grading is certainly two big areas. And another big area, and I've kind of always been interested in this, but you just can never learn enough about it. It's student choice, giving students the ability to kind of, inquiry-based learning, giving them choice to kind of follow their interests and things. And I'm really excited about this Genius Hour that's kind of makerspace. That's kind of, I as a language arts teacher, I always argue that English teachers were the first makerspace teachers out there, making books and things like that. But those are some areas that I'm really interested in. Classroom management, things like that's not really an issue for me. Passion's not really, technology. I'm pretty good about going out and finding things out. I'm always learning. I don't claim to know it all, but those are the areas of most interest to me.
Kelly, can I ask, you kind of alluded to this. We often ask, how being a dad has impacted you, as an educator, and you kind of mentioned, with my daughter started kindergarten this year, and, from that homework.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's amazing, to see it through her eyes and watch this emerging reader and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm sure as the kids get older, at Devin's age or some of your older daughter's age, can you speak a little bit more to how that's impacted you as an educator?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably I'm just guessing, you guys the same. At home, we obviously put a high value on education. So I've always been very involved with my daughter's work that they bring home and their projects, and trying to always support the teachers and encourage them. It really impacted the way that I assigned work and looked at projects, but probably the biggest area were the social aspects of my kids at school. And so I started to take a more of an interest with my students and kind of examining, how are they doing socially, and I wanted to talk about that more at parent-teacher conferences, and I wanted to be involved a little more with that. And so I'm the guy that's the high-fiver in the hallway, that greets the kids at the doors, that checks in on them every now and then at lunch, and I try to make the kids' day special because my daughters have gone through some rough spots, and although we are educators, and it's about learning, I think making a kid's day special and kind of making sure that they have friends and things like that's important too. And so I think that definitely wasn't there when I first started teaching. I think you look at it differently. I'm a little more compassionate in those areas, but that's a great question.
Have you ever read the book It's Complicated?
No, I haven't.
I was bringing it. We were talking pre-show, Devin and I just finished it up, and it's about teens' use of social media and or just kind of networked, as she called it. It's very well researched. I think you might enjoy it. I loved it. I thought it was an amazing book. Really opened up different perspectives for me on, because I'm passionate about social media in general for schools and embracing it versus blocking it, those sorts of things. And just interesting how it talks about what teens have always done. Now it's a hair different, of course, with social media, but all in all, not different in some ways. And they talked about digital natives versus the immigrants and some of the misconceptions around that. That a kid still needs to be taught some things. It's not just because they are growing up in this that they know these things. And I hear teachers say that a lot. Oh, they're natives or they're immigrants. It's no, they still need to potentially learn.
Yeah.
Like anyone else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Just because a kid has Snapchat loaded and has been using it doesn't make them an expert at it, or make sure they're using it the right way. And I would really, that is such a big part. That's a great point, Brent. That's such a big part of kids' lives that it only seems natural and important that it should be more part of schools' lives, and that we take a part in that. I think it's starting. There's definitely some gaps in there, but that's a really good point. I'm going to think about that some more.
I just wish, my biggest beef, if you will, for lack of better terms, is just the lack of leadership around it. I just wish there was more modeling going on and to me, leadership could mean you as a teacher.
Right.
And, the superintendent of a school district or whatever, the principal, anybody, the custodian.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm in Ohio, big Ohio State fan.
Nobody's perfect.
About a year ago, my mother had she went to Ohio State University hospital, got a pacemaker put in. I like to joke. She's 88 years old. I like to joke she's like Iron Man. She's got this this glowing disc in her chest and things. But while I was down at the hospital where she had it put in, I saw that the Ohio State University hired a social media director for $75,000 a year, And his job is to basically follow the social media posts of the athletes and scholar students and things like that at the university level. And I thought, wow, they had to hire a guy, and I don't think he's doing that great of a job because there's been some crazy social media drama. But I'm not saying I'd want that job either, because that would be a hard one. But I do kind of like that proactive look at it, And I think when social media makes the news, it's almost always negative. It's almost, and I think that models for kids. They almost think that's what they want to do, and I better watch how I word this. I know some school districts have some parents that don't model social media well for their children, and they get on there and complain. And I think students see that and they think, well, if you're upset, that's what you do. You tweet this out, you Instagram this out, and that's not it. And a lot of who the kids follow, that's how they're going to post their messages. Their messages are going to model those that they follow on there.
So as a middle school teacher, Kelly, what do you have those kinds of conversations with your middle school students? Knowing that lots of them are in these social media spaces, is that something that you take on as, obviously it's not probably in the curriculum, but do you take on that, having those conversations with those kids too?
Yeah, I do. I try, not as much as I would like to. This year, I'm really proud. One of our math teachers, she has a daughter that's in our grade, 7th grade, and she decided to be very proactive and ask the principal if the 7th grade teachers can have an Instagram account. Now, I don't know what your middle school kids are into, but our kids are it's all about Instagram. They live in Instagram. And so we talked about it. We have true teaming at our building. We're given a whole period to plan curriculum and talk about kids, and it's wonderful. And we spent probably too long, but we talked about the importance of modeling our Instagram messages and what photos we would take and how we're going to use it, how we're going to promote the school and the activities we were doing. And it has opened some doorways, not a lot, but it's opened some doorways in class to talk about things. And so when there's been some issues, we can say, well, what if we posted what we were upset about on Instagram and things. And so I think, just from my perspective, the first, how can a school talk about social media if they're not a participant? And if they're not a participant where the kids are. So I'm big on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. I don't really do a whole lot on Instagram. And so I've tried to take more of a presence. Kids have found me on Instagram, and so like Sunday afternoons I post a really inspirational quote on there, and they like it, and I think I'm quietly saying this is a good way to use Instagram, and encourage people and stuff. So but not as much as we need to.
Yeah.
Those are great points, Kelly. We appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. We have a couple more things that we need to wrap up. Do you have time to stick around and join in with that?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to cover our favorite or share an app or site of the week, someone to follow on Twitter, and a coming event, and highlight someone from our district. So we'll go ahead and start with ours. And if you've got one, go ahead and chime in. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, that's great.
Brent, you're up first.
So I haven't had a chance to test this out yet that far, but I have some studs in my department that love it. And we are making a transition to Gmail very soon in our district, December 27th. So I'm not counting down to Christmas. I'm actually counting down to the 27th when we finally flip the switch. But there is an app. I'm just trying to find it here so I can tweet it off. And I probably won't be able to find it on the. It's in the realm of. So a lot of our folks are very comfortable with Outlook, and we're going to make this transition to Gmail. And the beauty being you have the web store and all these things you can add on and do that sort of stuff. It's called Gmail Checker Plus, where potentially you have multiple accounts coming to it. And I guess from an Outlook perspective, it looks similar to that. And again, I'm not an Outlook user, but we're trying to accommodate those users in our district as we make the transition. I'll find it here in the store and get it tweeted off to Dads and Ed. But we had a staff meeting this morning, and literally the guys were kind of showing it off, and it looked pretty good. So I'm firing from the hip tonight, and as usual, I'm very well prepared, and so yeah, it's worth checking out, I think.
Speaking of the studs in your department, I see that Bill Little actually kind of underhandedly gave you a comment or a compliment, which I didn't know. I mean, we joke all the time about when Bill's review is, contract review. It must be coming up here pretty soon if he's starting to lay on the niceness.
Yeah, I mentioned that we had our staff party this evening as well, and over at our secretary's, she basically runs the department at her home. She has this beautiful home, and so I had the luxury of even getting to sit by Bill at dinner tonight, and so he's really sucking up ever since he was rude to me online.
Which time was that?
Yeah.
12 minutes ago.
Kelly, what app or site should we know about?
Well, I'm going to say too many, but right off the bat, I think everybody in education needs to check out iTunes University and iBooks Author. I really think that educators need to be making iBooks for their students and staff, and get a course up on iTunes U. It is really easy. I had several ADEs, Apple Distinguished Educators, on Wide Educator that have posted like little cheat sheets and quick ways to do it. They're beautiful and engaging for the kids. A couple apps for the phone. Not really educated minded, but I found one. I've always wanted to learn how to play guitar. I took piano lessons when I was a kid. Have you guys seen Musician?
No.
No.
You guys know Duolingo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You learn a language. Well,
Yeah.
Musician is exactly like Duolingo, but you can take these lessons on there, and it's gamified. You earn badges and things like that. So I'm going to learn how to play guitar in 2016. That's
Nice.
a big one.
Nice.
One that I've always kind of avoided was the Adobe Suite package of InDesign and all those. I've been using other apps and things, and I saw just last month that they offer an educator's discount, and I thought I would try it just for a month, and I've fallen back in love with all of Adobe's products of Photoshop and everything like that. I think it's like $15-16 a month, and I didn't really think. I thought that was a lot of money, but wow, are they powerful? And they're all in the Creative Cloud now. They all sync. So if you're working on a project on your computer, you can work on your phone or your tablet and things like that. And then one last one. I'm sorry to do three. You guys heard of Coach.me?
Nope.
Okay, so it's a habit building app, and so like you can put in something like floss your teeth, or do 20 squats a day or things like that. I have a whole bunch of habits in there, and then you just kind of like it keeps track as you complete them. So I'm really a goal-oriented kind of guy. Those are some ones that I love.
Nice. We don't really have rules on this show, so
Okay.
and I missed this episode that you talked about having ADEs on. Kristen Zimke is one of my new favorite people.
Yeah.
Devin actually mentioned her within the last year, and
brilliant.
got me connected with her, and yeah, she is awesome.
Yeah, I just interviewed her, and I hope you listen to the podcast. She's brilliant. She just wrote a book, Amplify,
Mm-hmm.
and on the podcast, I recommend it for every. It's kind of aimed at elementary and middle school and stuff, but it's kind of like the groundwork for technology in every grade level. It kind of basically spells out best practices for everybody. So
Yeah, it's on my
That's
reading list
definitely-
for sure.
yeah.
I have to take a human relations class and have to read that book. So after that, then it's on to Kristen's.
Yeah.
All right, Twitter follow for the week, Devin.
Yeah, I am going to share. I just tweeted it out, but Jonathan Wiley, who works for Grant Wood AEA in Iowa, I think Jonathan shares as a tech consultant with the AEA. Shares amazing things on Twitter and does really cool things. So Jonathan is my kind of Twitter follow for the night. And he also has a great accent, which I tweeted out. He's Scottish, I think. Is that right?
I think so.
Pretty sure he's Scottish. But anytime you can kind of mix really, really smart people with a really cool accent, I'm all in. So
And it makes reading his tweets better too. I mean,
Oh,
it's like
it does.
good content, but then I read it with a Scottish accent, at least the one I have in my head because we've talked, and it makes the tweets that much better.
It does, yeah. There's something about being really smart and having a really great accent that makes it like 10 times better. So,
which I have neither. But anyway.
Yeah.
Kelly, who is someone that we need to follow on Twitter?
I bet you're already following her. Her name's Alice Keeler, and if you're into anything Google, I'm not sure she sleeps because she's like tweeting something every minute, and it's good stuff. It's really good googly stuff.
Okay, so it's got to be scheduling stuff, right?
Yeah, she must be scheduling, but regardless, it's great content. And then because I can't follow the rules, I always wanted to have one more in there. I think everybody needs to I don't have one, but I think everybody needs to find something really funny to follow on Twitter because it kind of breaks up the monotony of it. But lately, and this is education minus, have you guys seen Star Wars in class?
No.
Okay.
I don't
well,
Star Wars.
With the movie coming out this week, maybe you should try it a little bit. But some great parallels there with Star Wars in class. I think I'm on a Trekkie show. Sorry. Okay.
You need to be. Do you follow Faux Pelini?
No, I don't think so.
He's an Ohio State guy, Josh. You don't care about no fake Bo Pelini.
What? Bo Pelini played at Ohio State.
Oh, true. Good. Well, yeah.
So Ohio now.
Coach of Youngstown State, FAUX Pelini. It is hilarious.
Yeah, it is funny.
So it started when he was ranting on the sidelines here in Nebraska, and just like it is great to watch it on game day. Is just fantastic, and he takes questions at halftime. It's some lawyer in Chicago
Really?
that does it.
Okay, I'm gonna check that. That's wonderful.
Like
big football.
Like the major breakthrough for the account was 2 or 3 years ago so it's always had like this avatar of Bo Pelini holding a cat during in like Owen Mills like church photo, and so like during the national championship game, probably I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years ago, the actual Bo Pelini tweeted to Faux Pelini, "Hey, I want my cat back," and it's about crashed Twitter. It was hilarious, and so then like the next fall, he came out like holding a cat up at the spring game. It is fantastic. It's like the only great thing we have to say about Bo around here anymore.
That's great.
Or the football team.
Well, yeah. Hey, we're going to a bowl. Anyway, coming event will not be the bowl game that Nebraska is going to because it's on like True TV or something like that. Anyway, short and sweet. Christmas is coming. That means we are just like crazy around the house, trying to schedule everything. Kids are nuts, I mean, with any holiday season, it just gets crazy. That's my event because I don't really have anything else going on. So, Kelly, what do you got on your horizon? Where are you going? What's happening?
Who's next?
Well, I'm gonna plug a friend's conference in June. It's called Create Conference. His name's Chris Hamady. You can follow him on Twitter at @CHamady, and he hosts a really nice conference in June. I'm always excited about the McCool Conference, MACUL, up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Apple Distinguished Educators got a big institute, a global institute coming up this summer. I'm going to try to see if I can be invited to that. But I think what the next thing I really want to attend, and you guys can help me with the name of it, what do they call those little get-togethers where there's no schedule?
Ed Camp.
Ed Camp. Yeah, I've never been to one. Can you believe that? Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I didn't prove this guy's resume before we had him on. I apologize, gentlemen.
Yeah. That is the best concept I've ever seen, and I'm going to just, as soon as the holidays are over, I'm going to find at least 1 or 2 ed camps and get to them because that's brilliant concept.
Yeah, I think.
I'm surprised Josh didn't start plugging Ed Camp Omaha now as you're coming.
Well, if you would have shut up, I was trying to.
Here.
March 19th. Here in Omaha, if you need an ed camp, I believe at one time there was one in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
Do you know Toby Price?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Toby at one time, him and I chatted prior to them doing theirs. I don't know if he's still involved or if they still have one, but that would be an Ohio one that I've at least heard of.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You know, they joke about it, but absolutely it is, and they will attest that ed camps are just fantastic, and I do think you would love it. It's just really getting passionate people together and chatting about this thing that we love doing. And,
Well, I love seeing them. I've seen people like present in hallways, and everybody seems super engaged. I've kind of been involved. Like I've gone to conferences, and sometimes they break up into events sort of like that. But I want to go to one that's just like free for all like that. Sounds awesome.
I'll pay your registration to the one in Omaha.
I may take you up on that. You come pick me up.
Well,
hey, bring your daughter. We got the best zoo in the country up there. So
yeah, make it a vacation. It's sometimes warm.
the three of us will be there.
True.
Yeah. We've
Sounds
had both
good.
snow and 75 degrees, so I'm not going to promise you anything.
That's great.
Somewhere.
All right. Wrapping up with our district spotlights. Devin, who should we know about in CB?
Yeah, somebody that I'll plug as a follow from our district is Lisa Schwartz, and I'll tweet hers out here in a second. It's at Lisa Schwartz 61. She is our teacher librarian and does lots of great things, especially for as spread out as she is. We have 11 elementary schools, and she is the teacher librarian for all 11 elementary schools.
Wow.
So she kind of goes to all of those and does a great job. So Lisa Schwartz.
I am going to give a shout out to Jen Johnson. Jen is one of our instructional coaches that just started this year. She was a language arts teacher prior to that. She does not tweet a lot, but she's getting better, and just does a phenomenal job with thinking outside the box. And I've always said that I don't think that we should have to have technology integration specialists. I think that should be an instructional coach because you're separating it out, and technology should be a part of instruction. And she's a great example of that. We actually work on the tech team together at our church, and we were sitting together one day, and she goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, last staff development day we talked about Plickers," and I was like, "Oh." I had no idea, and that was like 10 days ago. So she's definitely capable of doing my job some days. So I will tweet it out. Jen_Johnson6. Brent.
Yeah.
And then we'll get one
I
from
just
Kelly.
tweeted mine to at ISD for Independent School District Brad. He is our Dr. McLaughlin is our assistant superintendent for secondary schools. And he's heavily involved in, we're developing academies at our high schools, and he's just done a phenomenal job with that, so I want to shout him out for that and his work, as well as just in general for the school district as a whole. And ironically enough, we had Ed Camp KC in November, and a lot of teachers were able to attend because we hosted it here in Independence, which was great. And some of them from one of our larger elementary schools have taken it back to their building. And this Thursday, they're kind of doing a, quote, mini Ed camp. And so I'm excited to get over there for a little bit and support that group. It sounds like they just have 20, 25 people signed up at the moment, but that's 25 educators wanting to get together and talk shop. So
Yep.
Excited about that. And so Dr. Mack is also kind of burning about it, and he and I are registering for Ed Camp St. Louis, which is February 6th, as I recall. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that. I've never been to Ed Camp St. Louis. Been to a lot of them around the Midwest area here where I've lived, but have not been to Ed Camp St. Louis, so I'm excited to explore a new place and new Ed Camp because I've always enjoyed them. So I suggest that Kelly get out to one as soon as possible.
I did not know St. Louis was the 6th.
Yeah, you should come back.
I might have to. Kelly, who's someone from your district that we need to be following?
I'm going to shout out my principal. It's at Oak Harbor MS for Oak Harbor Middle School, and his name is Laramie Spurlock, and he's brand new to Twitter. He's really interested in getting followers, but what I really like is our area people are kind of social media shy, especially around education. And Laramie has really taken a great approach to it by really promoting student works and the things students are doing. So he's really promoting the kids with it, and I'm proud of that.
Feel free to have him. We've been doing 12 days of Twitter recently with different activities to do on Twitter. We need to get him joined in to get in touch with it. I'll send him a message here in just a second. So.
All right, super. Thanks.
All right, gentlemen, we have come to the end of another fantastic show. Kelly, we can't thank you enough again for stepping up and joining us tonight. We are going to take a little break here for the holiday season. We'll be back on January 4th. We didn't want to conflict with the national championship game, so we're going to hit the ground running in 2016. We've got some big announcements coming for 2016, so make sure that you tune back in. I don't know if Devin and Brent know yet, but yeah, we do.
So I was like, wow, that's a good teaser.
That is a good teaser. We better get to work.
Apparently,
Really good.
apparently I teased the host, so good. They'll be back. But Kelly, thank you very much. We do appreciate your time.
It was awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Fun.
Yeah.